Hello everyone, welcome to Fableheim and the second Dev Diary first Dev Stream Breakdown for Age of Wonders 4, Thrones of Blood. I'm fashionably late, but that's okay. Better late than never. Today's Dev Diary is all about the Sunless Lands, so we'll be going over that first. This is one of the new features coming in the Thrones of Blood. And then the second part of the video, or just follow the timestamps, we'll be going over all the things that are new that I spied in the extra long dev stream that happened yesterday. So, without further ado, welcome to the Sunless Lands, the dark and alluring new terrain waiting to be explored. Greetings, bloodsuckers and sanguine nobles. I'm Boss, a senior game designer at Triumph Studios. Today, it will be my pleasure to guide you through the dark and alluring locations of Thrones of Blood. Please keep your blood maggots on a leash during the tour. So, the Sunless terrain. As we knew we were going to have vampires in this DLC, they've known for a while, we wanted to play with the trope of vampires having to avoid harmful sunlight. We also wanted to include the environments vampires usually are found in media: grim, mystical, haunting, and romantic forests and plains backed by dark castles. In short, we needed a suitable gothic backdrop for our pretty and terrifying vampires. To do this, on the scale of an entire realm, we came up with the Sunless terrain, a new type of terrain feature similar to Gloom. It can be identified by its dark appearance with plenty of crimson details like roses and blood rivers, as you can see here. Ah, nice horsey. And some roses, look at that. The primary function of this terrain is providing safe haven for vampire rulers and heroes. This terrain and the entire underground are the only places on the world map where they do not suffer from sunlight weakness. I believe that is also true, they do not suffer on gloom. But I don't know if they suffer from gloom effects. Next to that, the terrain is also slightly hostile to anyone that still has a beating heart. Units without Heartless have their healing and regeneration reduced, and cities of a race without Heartless suffer a city stability penalty, adding a certain amount of dread and fatalism to the terrain. Of course, as an elder vampire, you have learned to adapt to your people and are completely immune. It's like the Eldritch Sovereign's Shepherd thing, but on a faction-wide scale, which is really cool. Why don't they change the Eldritch Sovereign to that too? Since this terrain is hostile to most, except undead and vampires, it only shows up in a limited amount in normal realms. If you want to cover the world in darkness, however, there is always the Sunless Islands realm trait that starts you out in a realm with a lot of sunless terrain. There are also ways for vampire rulers to spread this terrain themselves through spells and city structures. This is one of the new realm traits. We do see this in the dev stream, although they didn't make a realm, they're doing a challenge realm. So, sunless snow and ice are abundant, ashlands, chasm, and lava are scarce, and there is no sand. It's rough and coarse and gets everywhere. Good to note that the sunless terrain can be combined with almost all features that synergize with adaptation traits and the primal culture. So you can totally be an Arctic vampire ruler or a dune serpent primordial vampire. Is sand not... I guess you could have a dark sunless sand. It's just that sand's not present on the Sunless Highland trait. Got it. Sunless in tactical combat. As with all terrain types, Sunless will have unique visuals for the tactical combat maps, giving a creepy atmosphere when facing off against the many horrific creatures Age of Wonders 4 and the Thrones of Blood has to offer. We do see some more of this in the dev stream, although I didn't take many pictures of it. Nice little wyvern. Wait, is that a wyvern? That looks like a new mount. Hold up. We need to investigate. I think this is a new mount. It's really hard to tell. I think it is. That's the final answer. New mount. The new terrain in tactical combat is not just for show. There are two new dangerous obstacles found when fighting within sunless terrain. Rose vines is one such obstacle. It inflicts bleeding to any unit that starts its turn in it or passes through it. More importantly, each Rosevine obstacle creates a copy of itself on an adjacent hex after one turn. This copy will then create a copy of itself, and so on. As the battle goes on, the terrain gets slowly flooded by thorns. Look at that. That's disgusting. Bring your herbivores. Next to that, we have the Banshee Pods. These are inspired by dried out snapdragon petals, which look like miniature skulls. Banshee Pods release a dreadful banshee wail when destroyed, inflicting frost damage, weakened, and remorse in a 2-hex radius. I didn't even see these in the dev stream. I didn't even spot them. Custom regions. With the addition of Sunless Terrain, we also made some natural story regions using this new terrain. You can encounter these in normal realms and in increased numbers in realms with the Sunless Highland trait. These natural story regions allowed us to nicely frame the new locations that can be found in Sunless, such as a creepy gothic palace on the edge of a cliff overlooking surrounding dead forests. Ah, this is a handcrafted region. Okay. I wonder, can you terraform Sunless? I would think so. Maybe. I think that'd be a fun, character story to go into the Sunless Highlands as, a crusader or something and terraform away all the darkness. I think that'd be fun. The new location includes a magical material, 2 new ancient wonders, and a new landmark. Let us take a look at those now. Oh, wow, the dev stream we saw these 2 things. The Blood Glass. In Thrones of Blood, we wanted to add a new magical material that would fit with the vampires and Sunless terrain. And so, Blood Glass was born. A sort of naturally occurring stained glass crystal with bright red colors. Blood Glass is the only magical material found in Sunless terrain. Uh-oh. That only Sunless terrain that appears, right? That's naturally there. So a map with Sunless Highlands will still generate the other magical material. It just won't be in starting Sunless terrain. I hope so. Blood Glass, next to its economic bonuses, unlocks a bunch of item infusions that are linked to the new tome content of this DLC, such as the ability to inflict a new status effect called Parasite. Blood Parasite. What other parasite would it be? What does it do? Well, you have to find that out in a future dev diary, or stay tuned to the second half of this video. Normally, new magic materials belong to a new set bonus, but we could not guarantee that enough Blood Glass would be available for a set bonus, due to the limited amount of Sunless in a normal realm. Therefore, Blood Glass was added to the Ore Magic Material set, and the set requirement changed to require 3 unique Ore Magic Materials rather than having to collect them. Oh, yeah, so you can see there's 4 of them here now, but you only need to have 3 unique ones. Blood Magic, Summoning Undead, the Torment effect, the Blood Parasite effect. Torment is, promising. Ancient Wonders, next to the new magic material, 2 new Ancient Wonders emerge from the dark corners of the realm. First is the Crimson Fane, a new bronze wonder found in both Sunless and other terrain types such as Desolate, the areas containing Ashland, and Arctic, the area containing snow. Look at that, it's like a little portal dug into the earth. The Crimson Fane is a sinister dungeon in which ancient rituals once took place. It grants 1 of the new wildlife units and allows you to sacrifice thralls, which both the vampire rulers and eldritch rulers from eldritch realms can use, to gain a permanent increase in casting points. This is all assuming you have dealt with the horrors found within. I believe this is a bronze wonder, and it is 10 casting combat points and 10 world map casting points. And I believe it's just you do it once, and it's consumed like opening the vaults. Next to the Crimson Fane comes the Colossal Rose-Choked Palace, a new gold ancient wonder exclusive to Sunless terrain. It grants a larger pool than usual of units to your rally of lieges when captured, and is the only way for non-vampire rulers to ignore the penalties of Sunless terrain outside of undead transformation, so be sure to watch for vacancies. These Gothic mansions were once, or perhaps still are, owned by vampire nobility, but are free real estate if you manage to clear them of their squatters. You'll be fighting them in the opulent gardens full of hedge mazes and gargoyle statues. Oh, and should I mention the overgrown rose vines present? The groundskeeper must have perished long ago for things to get this bad. Yes. So this, I got a screenshot of it. Golden Wonder. It allows you to get the Rose Knights and the Rose Choke Skeletons. And it's like a food mana thing. The Landmark. Ooh, I love it. Lastly, the grandest thing to find within the new Sunless Lands is the Thornheart Landmark. A grotesque, giant heart beating and spreading its crimson veins across the land. This landmark can be present in any realm with Sunless, but is more likely present in realms with the Sunless Island realm traits. That is a beating heart. It grants a large amount of resources to adjacent provinces, but annex too much and it will start spreading Sunless terrain all around within your city's domain. If you're a vampire ruler or happen to have a rose-choked palace, this dangerous effect can be turned in your favor. So the Bloodspring Thicket. Province adjacent to the landmark gain +5 food and +5 mana. A farm in this province grants +5 knowledge, additional income. A city with 3 provinces adjacent to this landmark gains. The city terraforms 1 province on the surface within a 5-province radius of its domain per turn. The terraformed province gains Sunless and loses Gloom. Interesting. I guess that means that Gloom and Sunless can't be on the same tile. The city's empire gains the Parasitic Contamination combat enchantment when fighting in a province with Sunless. Regardless, getting the threshold bonus will always let you benefit from a new combat enchantment that affects all your enemies while fighting in Sunless terrain anywhere within the realm. So even if your units aren't too keen about fighting in Sunless, your enemies will have it worse. And there you have it, the creepy new terrain and the dreadful new locations, all available to you to stalk around in when Thrones of Blood drops on the 11th of November. Be sure to rise from your coffin next week when Lewis returns to reveal the blood and tormenting tones of the Thrones of Blood. We did get a slight sneak peek at the tomes, but that'll be at the very end of the screenshot barrage, which begins now. Welcome to the pretty picture moment. So, Thomas was joined by Luis, who is writing next week's tome, Dev Diary, and they are playing on the Premium Challenge realm, which I think this just comes with the DLC. Some of the challenge rooms have to be unlocked in the Pantheon, but whatever. So they're playing at a pre-made realm. It's very basic. Its main feature is that it has the Sunless Highlands. It also has city-states, banner lords, and land. That's why Thomas, there were some technical issues, but Thomas had to restart and put it on brutal, and his first free city was, a monster. Am I going the right way? Yes. Okay. So there's a lot of customization pictures that I have. We'll try and get through it. But this is one of the pre-made characters, and they were showing off the fact that there are bats. Yes, a new mount type has graced us. The bats can be flown upon. It'll be really cool. They're also showcasing the new Dark Culture rework. They were given 2 subcultures, and we'll talk about that in un momento. This is their vampiric opponent, who has a skeletal horsey. Look at that. So, Dark Cultures. Dark was one of the oldest cultures and in desperate need of a rework, and it has obtained it. There are now 2 subcultures, the Cult of Tyranny, which is closer to the original version and what the developers played today. They make it so that any units around them the Aura of Tyranny will reduce their status resistance, and they can exploit vulnerability on attack, I believe. Status vulnerability. Which is similar to the weakened thing, just more, vague. The real new thing here is their hostage diplomacy. So the way this works is whenever you defeat a hero of a free city, it will always go into your prison. And for every hero of that free city in your prison, you gain +1 allegiance. And it becomes cheaper to peace out, and then... So basically the idea is you're capturing their heroes and holding them hostage to make the free city like you more. There's more ways they can play on this, but that's like the gist of it. They don't start with a Whispering Stone. They don't really need a Whispering Stone because each hostage counts as a Whispering Stone. But you can still use them on people that you're at peace with and are not your city. Unique city structures provide greatly increased gold at the cost of city stability. The Dark Culture had awful city stability control, so this is kind of the return of that, but I think they get taverns now instead of their unique thing. We'll see. There's the Exploit Vulnerability. Yeah, base attacks to apply states of vulnerability, and you can heal, which is nice. A call to Call of the Weak. And then there's the Cult of Death. So the Cult of Tyranny, the Night Guard is now the Tyrant Guard, and the Dark Knight is now the Tyrant Knight. The Tyrant Knight has been renamed to the Subjugator, which fits this new rule. The Cult of Death, however, is a little bit different. And instead of having the Tyrant Knight, formerly known as the Dark Knight, they have the Deathstalker, I think. And the way this works is that units get power when friendly or hostile units are slain through power from death. Heroes in your crypt can be turned into embalmed sacrifices, which are special resources you can use to cast powerful spells or build certain sort of structures. So, power from death. Whenever a unit dies, you gain plus 1 Mortal Blessing, which is plus 5 hit points and plus 2% critical hit chance, stacking up to 10 times. So if 10 things die, your units have plus 50 hit points and plus 20% critical hit chance. I would not be surprised if this gets nerfed. Not even a little bit. Embalmed Sacrifices. When you embalm a hero, this is what they are. Powerful city structures and a unique strategic spell. Just one spell. So they talked about the Keeper of Knowledge with the Cult of Tyranny because, like I said, your hostages count as Whispering Stones. They haven't been able to use it, but they picked this. I thought it'd be funny. Which, maybe it will be. The Tome of the Blood Rite is the new Tier 1 tome. There's one at Tier 1, 3, and 4. So 3 new tomes for us to play around with. We'll see a little bit more of this later, but what they hovered over at this point was the Rite of Bloodletting. Target friendly unit sustains 5 unblockable physical damage. This cannot be reduced in any way. Then all enemy units within 2 hexes sustain 10 physical damage and gain 2 bleeding for 3 turns. And the Blood Cultist, who we will see more of later, which is a new battle mage. A very powerful battle mage. Oh, I also caught the Rite of Live Legion. Of course I did. Target friendly unit sustains 5 unblockable physical damage. You can see the trend here. Then all adjacent friendly units gain Strengthen for 3 turns and Lifesteal for 3 turns. Okay, Hemorrhagic Bolt. So the reason why the Blood Cultist is so good is because Hemorrhagic Bolts, their repeating attack, deals 10% extra damage per bleeding stack on the target. Or Blood Parasite. Which is this. I didn't get the first thing. This is the Scarlet Plague, the 3 AP action of the Blood Cultist, and it basically does damage, and it inflicts 2 Blood Parasite, which is functionally bleeding, but it replaces bleeding just like Ghostfire replaces burning, and it ignores Chase Effect immunity, so you can actually apply Blood Parasite onto like a Construct or an Undead or an Ethereal, and then you can trigger bleeding on them, because it'll then be converted into Blood Parasite. Attacks up to 5 times, and upon unit death, it spawns a Blood Maggot under the opponent's control until the end of combat. We'll see the Blood Maggot later as well. Also, the hover's right there. It's a pretty cute unit. It has the Corpse Gorge, which is a free action to eat a corpse, and it gains a stack of Strengthen. And then it will also gain Bloated, which will increase the damage of Parasitic Bloat, which is when it dies, it explodes. Deals 5 damage per stack of Bloated, stacking up to 5 times. Wait. No, Parasitic's Bloat deals 10 damage and a chance to inflict Blood Parasite. And then per stack of Bloated, it's 5 extra damage. Okay, so that works. I got confused for a second. So if you're fully juiced, that could be 35 damage in an AoE. Pretty spooky. Oh no, I missed the Vampire grab. Okay, got it. This is the Elder Vampires' overall description. An undead unit with an aversion to light. This list is getting really long of the ruler types you can select. Has actually the Vampire Castle instead of the Wizard Tower. Uses Thralls to cast Power Formation. Drains 20% of the combat experience earned by turned vampire heroes. The faction is immune to Sunless Terrain's penalties to city stability and morale. The Elder Vampires are Elder Vampire Governors. Find that later. And the Elder Vampires begin with a 5 gold unit upkeep costs. Aversion to Light is Sunlight Weakness. Units cannot regenerate and has 20% less damage unless in the Underground Gloom or Sunless Terrain. And then the Foundation of the Castle is pretty much the same thing as the Wizard Tower, just it unlocks Thralls. The Eldritch Sovereign gets them through battling in combat. The Vampire grows them. Oh, I caught it here, I didn't realize that. So Elder Vampire Governor is similar to Mortal Champion, just ever so slightly different. So at level 1, each population grants +1 food, +1 draft, and +1 knowledge. At level 2, acquiring new population and thralls requires 10% less food, because your growth affects your thrall acquisition rate. At level 3, each mine grants +2 Imperium. This is crazy good. And at level 4, units cost 10% less gold, draft, and or souls to recruits. So, I think the Elder Vampire, it is going to be so worth it to have a trait, an ambition that you can complete pretty easily to at least get to level 3. Like, level 4 is good, but this is more for like a later game thing when your draft production or unit production is so expensive. But getting to level 2 as fast as possible, I think is, I don't want to say mandatory, but really cool. And then there's this. So I was confused at what this meant originally, but I think the comments were right. There is functionally no difference between an Elder Vampire Pureblood and an Elder Vampire Hybrid. The difference is the Pureblood has its own unique customization options, and the Hybrid also has unique customization options, but they're based on the form traits that are already in the game. And we're now at the point of many, many customization pictures. So brace yourselves. They spent 40 minutes on it. I'll see what I can do. They showed off a little bit of the hair. Some of the hair is also from the... I always get confused. I want to call them Celestia. The Elysians. Mixing up with class of heroes here. They showed off some of the new weapons. They have a sword and a whip. They have a sword and a shield, and it's a vampire shield. All of the starting vampire weapons inflict bleed as well. This looks really cool. The glass-stained shield. They have a heavy Morning Star for the warrior class. I don't know if there's Morning Stars for everyone else, or if it's just a vampire thing. Because this is, you know, made of stained glass just like the shield, and it inflicts bleeding, and blah, blah, blah. And this looks so cool. It's unfortunately, I think, only for rangers, but maybe it's for... It's floating daggers, basically. They were inspired by... Who was it? Was it Alucard from Castlevania, who has the sword that flies around him? Anyway, they were inspired by that, and they went with this, because it was the easiest to implement. So the floating dagger, they fire ranged projectiles at an enemy unit, and it bleeding. I believe they said the animation was all of the swords kind of like go in a row, and they're sent at the enemy. And of course has the quick stab. Yeah, this is strictly a ranged weapon. So it is in fact, it's like the crossbow. That's right. So only rangers can use it, unfortunately. There is the new Blood Orb for the Elementalists. The new Blood Staff. This instantly reminded me of Cazador's stuff. It's like, maybe a Astarion wouldn't be a rogue. And the Whip is a skirmisher weapon. It has a repeating attacker, and then it has a Wacha. Unfortunately, the Wacha is just an attack. It doesn't pull or anything. Yep. 20 damage, inflict bleed. Here are some of the unique heads for the Pure Blood Vampire. You can kind of pick your level of ghoulishness. And, well, I'd be hard-pressed to pick that option. Yeah. Back to the hair. So here are all of the clothing options. Some of these were already in the game. They just have TB next to them because they're selectable for the Pure Blood. This is actually from the Pantheon tree. Thomas was confused as to why he had access to it, but they have a few things that are like Vampire Hunter themes in the Imperium tree that you can unlock for customization. And this is the chest piece. You can see the stakes on a robe. Here are the heads. We'll get a closer look at the other armor and the other heads. Don't you worry. A beautiful dress. Oh, I really want to play. Well, that's why they're probably Isabella. I was looking through the characters and I was like, Neferata is cool. She's the first vampire, deserves respect. But she gets kind of booted out of Lamia and then just like goes around enthralling different people. Unlike Isabella, who has very core characters fighting alongside her, like Matriarch of the Von Karsteins, blah, 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 blah. So probably her. Nice little blood crown here. I was just rambling as I'm going through different pictures. I believe this is what they went with. And like the Architects, I'm not sure if the hybrid has it, but the pure blood at least has two different metal colors. They showcase it a little bit. Like here, I think. Yeah, there's like red here, and then this is silver. And then there's new body decorations. I usually don't use body decorations, but some of these looked really cool. If they made a goth mommy. Nice. And some more scripture, if you will. Some red runes. They wound up on something that is like a pulsing red energy. Looks really cool. This one. It affected her little bat wings too, which hopefully we'll get to. We will eventually. It's a question of how many pictures I took. Lots of capes. Loads of capes. El Clasico vampire collars. This is just a shoulder thing. Then we have a blood swirl. An actual blood. Then we have weakened wings, I guess. I don't think this is holding anybody's weight. And they have like wing cape. This looks so cool. I can't think of anyone to use this with though, but it looks really cool. Then again, just some capes that they can use that we've had in the game before. We have a shawl. Crown of blood. They combined it with the back because someone asked. Some Venetian face masks. This would be... They talked about combining this with the Ancients. I think that could look good. I have no idea what this is. Another glass-stained crown. And then some of the poses, they have access to all of the normal ones. Then there are, I think, 3 or 4 unique vampire poses, and this is the coolest one, obviously. No, this is the one that's the coolest. Obviously. Then we have new banners. There's new banners in every affinity, pretty much. Except Astral, the one I look at first, of course. But there's some Vampiric emblems. They have a maggot down here for more of the ancient blood stuff going on. And then some Vampiric hearts and flat lines and stuff. Good times. The new Dark Cultures have runes on their armor. I think they had that before, didn't they? But previously, they actually like upped the color of the runes, but they were distracting and clashing with like transformations and stuff, so they reduced them again. You can see it more clearly over here in the Warlock. There are 2 new mounts. I believe these are just unlocked with the DLC. There is the Rose horse. The Rose Undead horse, which they were told not to use. So maybe there's an issue with them still. And here is the Undead horse for a proper Red Knight of Red Keep situation. At that point, the game didn't load properly. So they rebooted and went back to the Pantheon where you could see something new. There's a page button. This wasn't looking a little cramped. So there's now pages, which suggest the game's eternal state. Just keep expanding so we can keep expanding. There's the Triumph banner now. I'm surprised it took them this long to put it in, but new banners. That's the Age of Wonder banner. And there's the Triumph banner. Look at that. What we're really here for, though, this is where the Vampire Hunter gear comes from. There's the Hunter crossbow. They didn't really show these off in any detail, except for the garlic, which is a trinket, I believe. There's the Hunter outfit that we saw. There's the Hunter's hat, which is clearly Bloodborne. Fantastic. There's the Hunter's cape. And then there's the new society trait, the most important part of this. Apex Predators, the first evil trait for the nature affinity. And this is a little crazy. Gain 50 food on successful pillaging, on successful raising, and then you get 30 food on successfully migrating a conquered city per population, but the city loses additional population afterward. I don't know how much. And vassals grant plus 10 food income per population. And the starting bonus is starting units gain plus 1 rank. I think this is insane. I don't know if I'm alone in that, but I think this is going to be so good. Oh, can you do this with Strife, the Oath of Strife? There's no reason you couldn't, right? Because you could just go pillaging in one turn with the Oath of Strife at the start of the game, and 50 food at the start is a lot of food. Not too shabby. Not too shabby. So, they finally made it into the game, and they began, ironically, not on sunless terrain. But, it's okay, they fixed it. They began with the Rite of Life Leeching, which we went over, and they showcased some of the unique buildings for the Vampire, and the Dark Culture. The Dark Culture is the Collector. This is the you lose some status ability, but you gain more gold. This replaces their, like, merchants and whatnot. And then, did I not get a picture of it? Oh, that's sad. The Desecration Chambers, which is what they built first, will spread sunless terrain to your domain every turn. So, and it's really cheap to make. It only takes 4 turns, 30 gold. This is like one of those things you're meant to build right away, to get your own terrain to like you. The Sanguine Focus is an enchantment for blood mages and support units, granting their magic attacks plus 1 physical damage and a base 60% chance of inflicting bleeding. Effects increase for single shots, of course. The Flesh Carved Runes is a minor racial transformation. It grants plus 5 hit point regeneration on the world map, and attack and debuff abilities will ignore 1 status resistance per stack of bleeding on the target. All those cleanses are looking pretty good that we got in the last DLC, not gonna lie. So the vampires, depending on their class, they were a warrior, will begin with one of their bites from their unique tree. If you are a melee-oriented class, warrior, defender, probably spellblade, you start with, I think it's determined by your starting weapon, actually. Anyway, you start with the melee bite, which deals damage to the target unit and heals you for 50% of the damage dealt. You can do this to friends as well, but it cannot target units that are immune to bleeding. If you start with a ranged weapon or you're a spellcaster, you get the ranged variant of this, which is up here. Siphon Blood, it does less damage, but it has 3 range, and again, cannot target units that are immune to bleeding. Yeah, see, they're in their starting tile, and they're in sunlight. That was so funny. Here's the Moonlit Mansion. They discovered it literally just north of their domain. It's beautiful. Something outside is buzzing. Plus 5 Imperium, plus 15 mana, plus 15 food, minus 5 stability, counts as a farm. The city will ignore the stability of the Sunless within its domain, and it adds the Rose Knight and various Rose Choke Skeleton units to the Rally of the Lieges. I believe the Rose Choke Skeletons are exactly the same as regular skeletons, except when they get hit, they cause bleeding to the person who hit them. There's the Rose Knight. This is unfortunately the most we got to see of him in today's stream. Of course, a shock unit, Blood Rose Drain. Sounds cool. And Raise Thorn Skeleton. Free units. Speaking of free units, well, this is a real unit, actually. The Blood Maggot. But this is basically what you spawn. I didn't know you could get one that's on the map. And the Doom Bats. They debated making like a proper swarm mechanic for this, but they went with just Tiny instead, because the swarm mechanic was getting a little out of hand. Getting unwieldy, as it were. The Gift of the Old Blood is the new undead variant. I'm a little, I don't think concerned is the word, but the idea that when Louis was explaining Gift of the Old Blood, it's that it's like Whiteborn, but you have to wait one more tier of research to become undead. It's like a better variant. It's honestly just better, I think, in every identifiable measure. Because you become undead, you get Life Drinker. When an adjacent unit dies, this gains strengthened and heals for 10. And it has a chance to inflict Blood Parasite for 3 turns, which is damage over time, and then it explodes and makes it for a unit. I think in every quantifiable measure, this is better than Whiteborn, except Whiteborn comes first. It comes earlier, tier 3. I don't know. We'll see. So here's the Elder Vampire Governance. They're building the Desecration Chamber. Huzzah, you may spot the Immortal. Don't worry, we'll get to that. The Immortal. This is the artist formerly known as the Dark Warrior. And basically the difference between him now, the only difference, is that he is expendable. So when he dies, allies don't lose morale. And he has lesser resurgence, which is when this unit dies, it revives at the end of combat if you're victorious. However, unlike regular resurgence, it revives with only 10% of its max HP and no movement points. So, my goat. Yeah, the idea is you could just spam this guy out and sacrifice him and eat him and do whatever you want to deal with the death and benefiting from it. So here's the Painbringer, my absolute goat. This is all we got to see of her. This is, of course, a callback from the Deathbringer. I think that's what they were called. My goat. And, yeah, the first mythic unit that is of a cultural mythic unit. The first one. Oh, we got to see her repeating attack. Strike target unit and gain temporary hit points equal to 50% of the damage dealt. And it has Flanker built into it, I believe. Bloodthroat, this is the Bronze Wonder that we saw earlier. I did go over it a bit more in the patch notes, but it is a research post. 5 Imperium, 10 Knowledge, 10 Mana. Plus 2 mana per research post in the Street Domain. And adds the Shrieking Bat to the Rally of Leeches, which is the ranged unit. And if Thralls are available, the Thrall Sacrifice action on this structure becomes available to permanently gain plus 10 casting points from this structure. And again, I believe that's just a one and done. Here are the Thorned Skeleton Archers. And they have the Razor Thorns, which I think, like I said, I think that's the only thing about them that's new. Yes, this isn't bleeding or anything. Melee attackers suffer a stack of bleeding for 3 turns. That's it. Otherwise, they're exactly the same. Oh, hey, there's the Shrieking Bat. So, the Pursuer has had one... Well, I suppose they've been changed twice. First of all, they do this exploit vulnerability thing instead of apply weakened, because Call the Weak is all out of here. But their cool new feature is Relentless Pursuit. This is a free action 3 range teleport. And it's not written in here, but the way this works is it's used once per combat. It starts on cooldown once per combat, but if you kill something with this Pursuer, it will reset her teleport. So they are now, quite literally, Pursuers. Good fun. Alright, I believe we're looking a little bit more at the tree here. There is the Melee Bite. We looked at that earlier. Both of these bites can kind of path into 2 different directions. The one that they chose, the more offensive variant, is you get a 60% chance of inflicting stun for 1 turn, or you can choose to nom one of your friends. So if you are going for like a truly expendable, swarm them with crap type build, you have a free action to deal unblockable damage to friendly target, and then heal and gain strengthened from them. Well, you don't weaken them, you just get strengthened. You can upgrade that further to make it so that Drain Familiar now grants 3 strengthen to the ally you bit, and at the highest tier, it will also grant them 3 regeneration, and the heal that you receive is increased to 30 temporary hit points. It's kind of like a the Warlock Blood Bond, but it has to be, that take damage. On the more offensive side, you can upgrade from a stun to a mind control, and from a mind control into a dominate. So you can really begin to go in for the enthralling fantasy of the vampires. The side grade for the Melee Bite is that it will remove defense mode and retaliation attacks, unless the target has charge resist. And the side grade for the ranged one is that it has +2 range, bringing it to a 5 range magical attack. The fact that it's magical is important for some classes. Here are the flesh carved runes. Didn't really do a good picture of that, sorry. But basically, it just, their skin color did change twice. But it just like, runes that are red. It carves them into their skin. Now, one of the first things they actually manually fought were these pursuers, undead pursuers on the Graceful Judge. Very curious. Grace, in my opinion, is one of the strongest buffs in the game. But finally, it can be beaten. Besides just brute forcing it. The new Torment debuff cancels Grace. And Grace cancels Torment, but we'll get to that in a moment. This is the gravestones, which were added in the last DLC, but I still took pictures of it because why not? You can remove them if you don't like it. Alright, Tyrannical Exploitation. This is from the Cult of Tyranny. Just one of their cultural spells. And the Vassal Swarm lives on ever greater. Basically, you can make it so your vassal city will no longer gain allegiance. It won't go up anymore. But vassal income is increased by 20% for each point of allegiance income instead. So my thinking for this was that you would wait until they were supreme vassals and they had like, I don't know, 80, 100 allegiance, and then you just exploit them. So kind of like a mid-late game thing, but the Vassal Swarm did not need buffs, and the Vassal Swarm has been buffed. Well, I guess just for this culture. Their curse spell has been changed. Was it called Baneful Curse before? I think it was. It's still 1 hex radius, but it inflicts Weaken and Misfortune, 2 stacks of each, instead of the Sundered Defense and Resistance that it did before. Thomas mentioned the idea behind this was the point of the curse was to, hey, don't do as much damage to me. Because the Dark Cultures still do not have support units. So, keep that in mind. Here's the big honcho, the man, the myth, the legend, the Blood Exarch. A truly horrifying creature. One of the few, perhaps, worthy of being a tier 5 mythic unit. My goodness gracious. And, you can see he has a little maggot that he's holding. It reminded me of, I can't remember her name from Elden Ring. The girl you respec at. The queen, sorry. Sorry, my waifu Rani, I didn't mean to disgrace your mother. But yeah, this is a spooky, spooky unit. Has Parasitic Cleave, which I think he does hover. 1 damage to enemies in that 1 hex cone repeating, because of course it is, with 90% chance to inflict Blood Parasite. Then I believe these were not discussed, but Siphon Lesser, I'm assuming is just like he heals off from you. Blood Pull, yoink. Grant Blood of the Exarch, some sort of support skill. Here's the Oppressing Aura, so at the end of the turn, adjacent enemies have a base 90% chance of suffering Misfortune for 3 turns and 10 morale loss. And he has the Life Drinker, so whenever an adjacent unit dies, friendly otherwise, he gains Strengthen and heals for 10. This is going to be scary. It already looked scary, but we'll see. So, their first hero was a hero of their vassal. Their friend. I don't think they were vassals yet, but they're a friend. And obviously, the hero embraced vampirism. And they explained a little further, every single mortal champion you recruit will embrace vampirism. Regardless, it just happens. So that includes your champions from your pantheon. Wizard Kings, Eldritch Sovereign, Giant Kings, Dragon Lords will not embrace vampirism. But there is no way to get a mortal champion tree as an Elder Vampire. Kind of the long roundabout of this. Their particular friend from the Malevolent Elders had Painbound, which is a new racial transformation. When this unit is hit by an attack, it gains 2 morale and a random positive status effect. It's a masochist! And he was a Spellblade, so they chose to go for the ranged attack, Siphon Blood, because it's magic. And there are a lot of synergies in the Spellblade tier for that. Deep Hunger, this is an exclusionary choice down here. Deep Hunger, on the left side, reduces the cooldown of Blood Drain by 1 turn, and the other side, I believe, ignores defense and resistance. I didn't get a picture of it, though. And here is the turned vampire trait that all of your heroes will possess. Immortal Champion origin skill is replaced by the Vampire origin skill. They do not get Vampire signature skills, though. That's just for the Elder. Become undead, they have Sunlight Weakness, and they have Vampiric Regeneration, where at the end of combat they regain 5 hit points. And then 20% of the experience earned in combat by this unit is given to the Elder Vampire that turned them. And someone did ask, when the Elder Vampire is level 20, this experience deficit still remains. The 20 experience is being lost to the void. Wait, there's one more thing there. When the Elder Vampire that turned them gains a signature skill, this unit gains +5 hit points and +1 resistance. So there is some return for the experience malice. A little bit. We have the... Of course, it's being covered. This is the weapon enchantment from the first tome that they chose. The melee attacks of Skirmisher, Polearm, Shock, Fighter, and Shield units will deal +1 physical damage, and when attacking units with Bleed, heal for 2 temporary hit points. They found an insect skeleton. This is the Thorned Skeleton Militia. But it's just rare to see a skeletal insect. They're supposed to look like this. It's just so funny every time. Because when, you know, an insect dies, their skeleton is their exoskeleton. That's it. And here is the Tyrant Guard. This is the reworked Tier 2 unit. It used to be known as the Night Guard. I believe the Cult of Death has the Death Guard. They didn't really go into what he does, but I believe that's what he's called. And the big shtick about the Tyrant Guard is that he has the Armor of Contempt. So, this unit has +1 defense and +1 resistance against attacks for each debuff on the attacker. And that got very out of hand in the stream. So I could see these guys being very, very durable if you are spreading debuffs like mad. And they themselves can inflict Exploit Vulnerability and Immobilize. So the Tyrant Guard is probably one of the best polearms at just getting in there and making sure nothing gets past him. A wall of spears. The Phalanx returns. The Free City leader, did the music stop? The Free City leader that they were facing off had missed away. So he went straight down the vampire line real quick. This is basically slip away, but specifically for vampires. When this unit's HP are reduced to 0, it is displaced by 3 hexes and heals +20 temporary hit points. Works once per battle. And then there's this feature that I saw. The boosting population is different now, and there's a reason. This UI has been changed for a reason. A good reason. They shut off the Vampire Castle Foundation, which again does this. You gain the Clairvoyance Ritual, which is the one they share with the Eldritch Sovereign. It just reveals the nearest point of interest. And you can use souls to gain thralls or thralls to gain souls, whichever you want to do. You don't need this. They wanted to drill that home. You don't need souls to use this. It's just souls are a resource you can use if you have access to them. This is the Warlock. The Warlock was ever so slightly reworked for the Cult of Tyranny, but the Cult of Death has a new version of the Warlock. For our developing warriors here, developing streamers here, it inflicts weakens and exploit vulnerability. And then it has the Sundering Curse, which has been slightly changed. It, of course, has the exploit vulnerability, Sunder Defense, Sunder Resistance, but it bounces. I don't remember the baseline one bouncing. Maybe they added that a while ago. If I bounce this, it will hit another person within 3 hexes. Here is the Blood Glass. I don't know if the Dev Diary went over what it actually does, but it adds +20 draft to the domain, and units gain 5 hit point regeneration on the world map per turn. This extra regeneration. What's up to love? This is unique, so this won't stack. I'm pretty sure. That would be crazy. And then here is the them showcasing the 4 magical material on the list. I didn't read the dev diary before I did the stream, so some of this may be redundant. Here is the Blood Cultist, the Goat, the new Battle Mage Goat. I don't know why that was so difficult for me to say. Here are his Hemorrhaging Bolts. We take a look at those. Here is the Scarlet Plague. It's 20 damage, full action, 6 range, always hits, and the target enemy sustained damage. I believe this pierces defense. So, it's just, hey, here's 20 damage in your face. And get +2 Blood Parasite. The Dagger of the Right is a free action that's terrifying. They can use this, and they will take 5 damage. They will gain 60% damage bonus, then gain Resurgence, and then they will die. At the end of the turn. So the point is, I'm going to take this turn to do a lot of damage, something big and scary, and then I'm going to die. But because he has full Resurgence, he will come back if you win the battle at like 50% HP. The Blood Altar is the unique Special Province improvement for the new Tier 1 tome. It is a conduit that grants +15 draft income, +5 draft per adjacent farms, and when victorious in battle, gain 10 mana. They built alarmingly few farms, so don't really have to make use of that. The Dark Forge is the SPI for the Dark Culture, and I believe it was ever so slightly tweaked. It is a gold mine still, grants +10 gold, and +5 production per adjacent quarry, mine, or forester. I think it's a lot better now. I think it was it draft before? Anywho, this variant is much preferred. And as an Elder Vampire, of course, you gain Imperium from gold mines. Sorry, the music did turn off that time. So they triggered a unique event for the Vampire Elder, the Craving. And it's basically just, you hunger for blood. What will you do about it? You can either block the growth in, I'm not sure if it would be your capital city all the time. Maybe because where your castle is. But you gain major morale for a little bit. You can eat one of your heroes and then you rank up twice, which is so funny. Or you can devour some of your thralls, which they had not yet begun producing. And here is the signature skills. Now, this is the most surprising part of the Elder Vampire Diary to me. How creative these were. There are like 25 signature skills. And they're all pretty unique. But here is the full list of the level 4 ones. So, there's the Hemomancer, which is a free action. Sustained unblockable damage equal to 10% of your max HP. Your next attack this turn will deal plus 50% damage. I don't know if this will stack with Go for the Kill, but if it does, that'd be really funny. You also get a passive where you recover 10 hit points when killing a unit with a magic, melee, or physical range attack, and all of these will get increase your gold upkeep by 10. On top of that, these do all have, little skills associated with them. These are not new, but they are all uniquely chosen to kind of fit with the theme of the signature skill you chose. So then there's Night Sworn. Night Sworn, which allows you to summon a bat swarm around you, which is kind of just like an AoE skill. Free action, it deals 8 damage, and there's a 90% chance of becoming blind for 1 turn. The enemies, that is. Passively, you start combat with a Doombat. And then Dreadful, which sounds so fun. Free action, target enemy unit gains 2 torment until the end of combat, gains stays vulnerability for 3 turns, and loses 10 morale. You also gain Tyrant, attacks cause 4 morale loss on target, doubled for single shot attacks. I think if you go down this like dread route, the I remember what it's called now, the tier 2 tome, would be terrifying. Dreadful, you could say. And here's the new torment that cancels out Grace. When the unit uses an ability, it sustains 8 frost damage, loses 4 morale, loses 1 stack of this effect, and stacks up to 5 times. So, this will trigger on free actions. So if you have a high culture, if it's against the high culture, you put this on somebody and they try to, awaken somebody, they'll take damage and lose a stack. And then when they attack, they'll also take damage and lose a stack. Good fun. And last but not least is Desecrator. This gives you the Dark Sacrament skill, which is a leave you with 1 action corpse explosion that does 15 damage, and in a 2 hex radius, 15 damage, and inflicts disease and decay. 100% chance. You also will start combat with a zombie. So if you are a warlock, and you go Desecrator, you can start combat with 3 zombies, which is all fun. All well and fun. Fair and balanced as all things should be. This is the new prison UI. I don't know if they changed this for everybody or just for the Cult of Tyranny, but it will now show you which factions, or in this case free cities, that the hero's corpse you have belongs to. Their opponent is Insultor, and they have one hero captured. Again, you always capture heroes that you defeat. None of them go to your crypt. You can kill them and send them to your crypt. But they go to the prison, and because there's one here, it is generating one hero allegiance. Also worth noting, if you do take over a free city without defeating any of their heroes, you will always get one hostage, because that acts as the Whispering Stone. If you kill the heroes, if you execute them for 10 turns, all of your cities will gain plus 10 city stability. I don't know if that stacks. I hope so. This is the Vampire Castle Chambers. They did rename some of the Wizard Tower stages. At Tier 2, the Chambers grants plus 5 Imperium income, plus 3 vision range, plus 1 starting rank to every Tier 1 magical portion unit, unlocks summoning Tier 2 units, and unlocks the Blood Transfer Ritual, which I believe, I didn't hover here, but I think it gives like 50% healing to your vampire and 20% to his stack, I think. The Vampire Castle Abattoir, good fun, is the prison. Now, the reason that they already had their prison fully functioning was because the Tyrant cult does. But in general, you have to build the prison before you can do anything with the people in it. This gives plus 2 knowledge income per hero in the prison. Heroes in the prison can be converted. And uniquely for the Elder Vampires, heroes in the prison can be consumed to grant experience to your heroes. So this is the way. I think the Elder Vampire can do this, but I think you can also do this to any hero on your team. You can have them go to your prison and eat somebody, which is fun. And here is the Whispering Stone section. You can see it is, in fact, bars, because it's being affected by the hostages, not anything else. The Deep Crypts. This is your Vampiric Crypt. Plus 2 mana per mana income per hero in the crypt. Heroes in the crypt can be resurrected, and in this domain, vampires gain plus 10 hit point regeneration per world map turn. So this will be your Elder Vampire and heroes. And last but not least, for the add-ons to the Vampire Castle, the Soul Forge. This unlocks the Item Forge, and it unlocks the drafting of Vampire Spider Hatchlings, Doom Bats, Shrieking Bats, and Vampire Spider Matriarchs. These units will cost gain a throw cost to draft. So they took the Night Sworn, they left it the chat. Chat shows the bats. And you can see that has the Frost Strike, and it has Pack Leader. So it is very feasible to do an animal build for the Vampire. And there's Frost Strike, because Frost. The apex skill for the Vampire tree is the Vampiric Flight. When not mounted, this unit gains flying movement, fast movement, and 20% evasion against physical range and magical attacks, because the vampires cannot be affected by transformations. So, this is how you become flying. And there's the chambers again. Good job, Fib. But I got the spell this time. Heal vampires for 50% of their max hit points, and heal non-vampires for 20% of their max hit points. So, if you had a hero in your stack with your lord or whatever, the hero and the lord would stack for heal for 50%, the other units heal for 20%. Not too shabby. And they zoomed in on the stage 1 of the Vampire Castle. It gets very unwieldy. Massive. And then here you can see the Vampire Heroes. The turned vampires do not have the Vampire signature skills. They have the typical ones. This is their ranger that they recruited. Couldn't tell you why I took the screenshot, but there she is. And here's why they reworked the UI for the cities. Because they shoved the thralls in there. As I mentioned, Eldritch Sovereigns get thralls by just fighting people. The vampires generate thralls based off their food income. So with 23 food per turn, they are generating a thrall every 6 turns. So they really do play well with nature, which people said makes sense, and I kind of agree. At the very end of the stream, they went super long. It was a 3-hour stream. It was crazy. I think they were the only ones in the office, is what they said. But the very end, they showed off the other 2 new tomes. Now, Luis is writing the Dev Diary for next week, which will be going in depth on the tomes. But for now, we can take a little bit of a peek. See what we think. So the Tier 4 tome, the Tome of the Crimson Rain. Embrace a forgotten and corrupt magic that empowers your high-tier units and has your faction embrace an ancient form of undeath, gaining the power to spread blood parasites to your enemies. It is Shadow Chaos. Tears of the Crimson Sovereign. Mantle of the Blood Noble. Gift of the Old Blood. We know this is the major transformation. The Crimson Court. Well, now I have to play Castle Nathria. This looks like a structure. And then, of course, the Summon Blood Exarch. This isn't tied to the Elder Vampire, so this wouldn't be a thrall cost. It'd be like just a mana cost, probably. Could be mana and gold, I suppose. Tears of the Crimson Sovereign is probably a combat spell, right? Or a world map spell. Mantle of the Blood Noble. This has to be an enchantment of some kind, right? So you do not get, unless the Crimson Court lets you get the Knights of the Rose or whatever they're called. And last but not least, the Tier 3 Tome of Torment. This is a pure shadow tome. It gives you the Basilica of Lamentation, SPI. It's a conduit of some kind. Tormenting projectiles. I can only assume it gives projectiles torment. Agonize. That looks like a combat spell. It could also be a world map spell. It could be like the, I can't remember what it's called. In Tome of the Doom Herald, there's a world map spell to inflict... Demoralize? Whatever it's called. The Morale Bomb spell, I bet that is this, but torment. Painbound is the racial transformation we saw. Painbringer is my goat. I'm actually really curious to see how people are going to feel about a mythic unit being affected by transformations. I think it's going to be a little nutty. In the Lens of Anguish. That could be a city structure as well. Could be. But, my friends, I believe if I press this button... I don't know what he's doing there. That was it. That was the shade. Uniquely appropriate. But that was it for this Dev Diary Dev Stream Breakdown. The only thing left I have, if anything, my handy dandy notebook. Some of these I included because I remembered them, which is very impressive. But there is no day-night cycle for Elder Vampires. Terra Knight is the Subjugator. There's a new Empire skill for the Cult of Death, the subculture, that allows a unit to act again, cleanses it, grants it resurgence, and then it dies. So it's basically like the black... I'm trying to say blood mage, but it's a battle mage that uses blood. The blood cultist, I think his name is. It's like that ability, but it's more do it again instead of gain more damage. Every World Champion you recruit is a turned vampire, yes. The vampire weapons are available in the item forge, even if you're not a vampire. I don't believe they do bleeding, but they're available. Skirmisher weapons can now be used by warriors and defenders. Maybe spellblades too. Maybe Death Knights. These are the ones that have a ranged component, but primarily have a repeating attack. Vampires begin generating thrall when the first vampire castle is built. Yes, indeedy. Ah, they talked about werewolves. Because, of course, we're playing vampires. Someone has to bring up werewolves. So werewolves are something they want to do. And they've both tried, both Thomas and Luis have tried to make shapeshifting work. Thomas when he's doing hero reworks, and Luis was doing it, trying to do it with the primal culture. But it caused a lot of back-end problems, and, never really made it work. The dark subcultures no longer have stability-ignoring mechanics. The Caustic Worm appears on sunless terrain. The Elder Vampires are not affected by transformations because they're already too strong. Hold on, let me rephrase this. Because, quote, they're already too strong, end quote. There's 4 new music tracks for the Thrones of Blood. They'll probably release all the music at the end of Season 3 like they did for Season 2. We're listening to it right now. It's beautiful. Changes are coming to the Imperium tree. So the developers are working on the Imperium tree. They've done some work on it, but changing that's a big deal. So they're working on it for the future, and they don't want to just tweak numbers. But they did give us a little bit of a warning that it's not like a massive overhaul, it's just changes or new stuff or whatever it ends up being. So keep an eye out for that, I guess. We know Vampiric reaches 20. The experience mouse doesn't go away. Next week is the tomes. And the Cult of Tyranny can use Whispering Stones only on free cities that you do not control. It's like when you're in the talking stage, you can send them a stone. But once you vassalize them, you get a hostage, and that takes its place. You can still use stones, of course, to increase your city stability. Only they're useless. And the Cult of Tyranny... Nope, wait, not that one. Resurgence units do not get XP. I think that's what Louis said. It's kind of hard to tell. But I guess this is when a unit dies. If a unit is dead in battle, the experience goes out and then it resurges, so it didn't get the experience. Maybe. I'm curious if anyone actually knows if that is true. But, my friends, that was it for this Dev Diary Dev Stream breakdown. You can find a link in the description to both if you'd like to read at your leisure or watch the stream at your leisure. If you haven't already, a little over, approaching 36 hours. But, sorry, I just have to do. Thanks for watching. Thank you to patrons and the Sherman Support channel. I greatly appreciate you. If you'd like to stay up to the channel, feel free to join the description down below. I will see you next week, hopefully on the same day, for the next Dev Diary about the tomes and the next Dev Stream Breakdown.